You also caused a great deal of distress for somebody whom I'm very fond of. And I can't stress enough that in that regard, I will fuck you over for that one of these days if it's the last thing I ever do. I just want to make that clear, Phil.
From hell's heart, I stab at thee. For hate's sake, I spit my last breath at thee.
To quote Melville, from hell's heart, I will spit my last breath at thee.
So who is Captain Stabby here? Captain Fruit Loop. Well, his name's Hannibal the Lecter. Hannibal the Victor, and he's a feminist.
I will not forget that until I'm in the grave. And that's the only way you're going to get out of basically paying for it in the end. I will find a way to basically screw you over for that.
And I've got to say, it's good to see such ethical and moral behaviour thriving so strongly in the feminist community. Well, he likes Anita Sarkeesian.
You complain bitterly about the fact that she got all this money and there's been no appreciable change in the production value of her video. This is actually totally false. There has been an appreciable change in the value of the video. Not just hair and makeup. Not just hair and makeup, but lighting, specific types of lighting.
Well, great news. Today I'm going to show you how you can change the world using only a video camera, a plaid shirt, and a dream.
Sound effects, sound control, sound editing, editing of the film footage. To get a really good camera, it's very expensive.
Again and again, the men in these games are just portrayed as objects to be acted on.
We're thinking about the object-subject dichotomy. Subjects act, objects are acted upon.
This is via what's called the subject-object dichotomy. In the simplest terms, subjects act and objects are acted upon.
The subject. Subjects act, while objects are acted upon. Now I know you're thinking, crazy Lacey, what's this got to do with sexuality? And the answer is everything.
Because once something has been turned into an object, violence against that object becomes intrinsically permissible.
And I'm sure that Anita Sarkeesian actually had to sink a lot of money into that to do just that.
Pokemon strategically places all of the Squirtles under direct female supervision. This is meant to suggest that women are meant to stay home to care for their children and their respective Pokemon.
Great job, but this time let's make sure everybody knows that you're reading off of a teleprompter.
Homer Simpson calls his snow removal business Mr. Plow. Mr. is meant to represent his hatred for women, and Plow, which is code for rape, describes what he intends to do to his customers. He might as well have just called it Mr. Rape.
Truth Stings have repeatedly said that Anita Sarkeesian needs to do things like cite her sources.
In other words, viewing media that frames women as objects or sexual playthings profoundly impacts how real-life women are perceived and treated in the world around us.
First of all, this is a layman production, as one person has already pointed out to you, two twits.
Paradoxically, and somewhat ironically, those who most strongly believe that media is just harmless entertainment are also the ones most likely to uncritically internalize harmful media messages. In short, the more you think you cannot be affected, the more likely you are to be affected.
And two, she's using feminist theory as a critique on popular culture.
We must remember that games don't just entertain. Intentional or not, they always express a set of values and present us with concepts of normalcy.
It's her interpretation based on the theoretical positions. If you want to know anything about it, you'll have to read some books on theoretical feminism.
The belief that women are somehow a naturally weaker gender is a deeply ingrained, socially constructed myth, which of course is completely false.
In other words, you'll have to read books that actually explain to you what feminism is about.
A feminist analysis. Not an objective analysis, not a scientific analysis, a feminist analysis.
And I'll just take her word for it because, frankly, she's a hell of a lot more trustworthy than a couple of fucking clowns like you, or Joe or Gnome for that matter.
And he thinks that among the abominable crimes I've committed are...
that you caused a lot of misery for several people in particular over the last couple years. You've certainly caused a lot of misery for Anita Sarkeesian in your unethical attempts to, I don't know if it's just bring money into your channel or something like that. Your attacks on Rebecca Watson, for instance.
Yeah, he thinks I'm responsible for such evil crimes as harassing Anita Sarkeesian, with facts and reasoned arguments, like exposing her dishonesty or exposing her privilege. I mean, after all, how much more privileged can you get than getting $160,000 to make a dozen videos in 6 or so months? And then feeling so entitled that not only do you not complete that goal, but now, when it's over 2 years late, this woman who is lecturing everyone else on privilege and entitlement is now 2 years past the due date, has only made half the videos, and is already asking for more money. And what better way to defend the virtues of such fair damsels in distress as Anita Sarkeesian? By getting all stabby.
I will fuck you over for that one of these days if it's the last thing I ever do. I just want to make that clear, Phil.
That's a good place to start, ultimately, in terms of being an ally. And, any concerns about stuff like white knighting and so forth, just let that roll off. That's,
You're probably doing something right if you're being called a white knight.
Yeah.
After all, it'll show everyone that feminists are about fairness and justice. And Captain, I'm going to fuck you up if it's the last thing I do, stabby for everyone else. Now, there'll be people out there who say, okay, so the guy's a fan of Anita's, and he says he's going to fuck you up. That doesn't mean that she's responsible. Actually, that's the great thing. According to feminist logic, she's completely responsible. In fact, this is just the sort of hate that Anita Sarkeesian stands for and promotes. And she's only doing it for the crowdfunding hate dollars. Because you see, according to this recent Boing Boing article, because someone wrote a trolling email to Anita and mentioned a video that I made and my name, that makes me a for-profit hater. Which, of course, would make Anita Sarkeesian a for-profit hater who got $160,000 of crowdfunding simply so she could hatefully inspire her fans to fuck up anyone who is critical of her. Now, where's my pity party for all the violent threats that I got just for daring to criticize the violent nature of feminism?
Violent threats for pointing out sexism in video games.
Where's my wall-to-wall media coverage for feminists' violent reaction to me simply for daring to highlight and criticize the violent nature of the privileged girls' club? Well, maybe with the odd honorary white knight that is feminism.
Her goal? To bring attention to what she calls the inherent misogyny in the gaming world.
Because you can be bloody certain that's exactly the sort of way that people like Anita Sarkeesian and Brianna Wu would be milking this if some random crazy person had just threatened to fuck them up if it was the last thing they did. But me, I'm not a feminist, which is why I figure I'll stick with my ruthless fact-based takedowns, thanks. But Captain Stubby does more than just put these simple, all-encompassing threats into feminism. He also shows how it addles the mind. You see, apparently Hannibal was here watching this video, and then after pretty much agreeing that I was right on every single historical point.
Firstly, there is really nothing inaccurate at all concerning the information that Thunderfoot put forward with Erwin Rommel and Hans Guderian and a number of other Germans who served in the Wehrmacht during the Second World War.
Decides that he's now going to be the arbiter of ethics, and he's going to decree that I don't understand them and that he does.
And his lack of understanding of philosophy, ethics, and his own deficiencies in those areas, which I will talk about at the end of this.
But as you may expect, this lecture on ethics is going to be a little weird. After all, it is coming from Captain I'm going to fuck you over if it's the last thing I do, Stabby. You see, he's going to chastise me for my lack of knowledge of ethics in this video I did with Ray Comfort, by agreeing with the core points that I was making about ethics.
But, I mean, let's distill this down to the very core of the moral decision. And and that's the costs for the individual and the costs for society. So
it comes back to money and power?
Not money and power. It comes down to who benefits, what are the costs, and what are the benefits.
The actions that we take should always be towards the authoring of some sort of type of good, personally for ourselves and for other people. And then one could say that that which benefits not just oneself but the whole of society in and of itself is something that we could describe as being of the good.
Yeah, that's right, folks. This is your straight-up feminist logic. You're completely clueless, and now let me demonstrate how clueless you are by verbatim repeating your argument.
A German officer has got a gun pointed at your head. You want you to get into a bulldozer and drive it forward. In front of the bulldozer is a pit. Excuse me. In front of the bulldozer is a pit with 300 Jews in it. They've just been shot. Some of them are still alive. He wants you to bury them alive. If you don't do what he says, he's going to shoot you to death and do it himself. Would you drive the bulldozer forward? And don't say I don't know.
In that case, I mean, it really is. There are people who did this. There are people who...
I know, that's why I'm asking.
There are people who did what they were told, and this goes very much back to how people respond to...
So what would you do?
If it were me, if I had the brain that I have at present, I'm just teleported instantly back there, I'd give him the finger and tell him to go fuck himself.
Can't say that. Put it another way.
I would give him the finger.
No, you can't say that either. Just say I would say no and I'd die.
Yeah, there are worse things than death,
So you wouldn't do it?
No.
Because you value human life?
No, because ultimately malevolent social structures like the Nazis propagated for the large part on complicity. Right? The majority...
Could you put that in English for us peasants?
Sorry. People following orders is what made the Nazis...
So you wouldn't do it to save the Jews, you'd do it because...
And this is straight to Phil himself. First of all, Philip, I want to point out that one of the reasons that you seem to have so much difficulty with tough ethical and philosophical questions is because you lack any kind of ethical consideration in your own life. In other words, you're exactly the kind of person who the Nazis relied on to be able to carry out the final solution.
He's now going to say that I'm unethical because I'm the sort of person who would just use mental gymnastics to go along with things like the Nazis. And for those who missed it, this was my reply to Ray.
If it were me, if I had the brain that I have at present, I'm just teleported instantly back there, I'd give him the finger and tell him to go fuck himself.
Yeah, I know. I'm a monster. But Captain Stabby's not done yet, because he's quite clear that the ends never justify the means. That's Nazi talk.
That in my study of the Holocaust, I discovered that there were many individuals like you who were flexible in terms of the morality, said that the ends justified the means, and figured out all kinds of mentally gymnastic ways to justify doing something awful to people. And you, Phil, are one of those individuals.
And only truly unethical people like myself would ever do that, which is why he hates me so much.
See the things that you've done, see the consequences of what you've done, much like many of the Nazi leadership. You really don't care at that point. And that is the whole problem here. Just like people, for instance, many of the Nazis, the ends justified the means, or other people who have done horrible things simply saying that the ends justify the means, or they don't really have any ethical considerations like you do, Phil, because you clearly don't have any basis for ethics whatsoever.
And why is he going to fuck me over if it's the last thing he does? Because the ends do justify the means, just like they did with the Nazis, right?
And like I said, one of these days, I am going to find a way to fuck you over for what you did, one way or the other. If it's the last fucking thing I do, okay? And that might violate some of my ethics, but at that point, I'm really not going to care. That in my study of the Holocaust, I discovered that there were many individuals like you who were flexible in terms of the morality, said that the ends justified the means, and figured out all kinds of mentally gymnastic ways to justify doing something awful to people. And you, Phil, are one of those individuals.
This is just more ad hoc rationalization by you. You need to be able to fit this into your paradigm of racism. So you have to figure out a way around it. And so you give this ridiculous explanation, but it's only what you think. It's based on nothing more than your opinion. You don't really know what those people think and why they think it. You simply assume that. And you assume that about everybody, the same way that you label anybody who disagrees with you as being some sort of race egalitarian or race flat earth belief in creationism or whatever the hell it is you're doing this week. But the whole time that you're doing nothing but associating your opponents with what's considered...
You're exactly the kind of person who the Nazis relied on to be able to carry out the final solution.
You're not actually doing what should be done here, and that is making an argument. And that's something you fail to do constantly.
Look, Hannibal, for a second, let me just level with you. Instead of going on these bitter diatribes...
Just motherfucker, I hate you, Phil. You don't... God damn it. I fucking... Son of a bitch, I can't even talk.
You might want to take a page out of, say, the rationalist book and maybe present some evidence for these hideous crimes you think I've committed. I mean, surely if I've committed these hideous crimes, you can come out with some evidence for it. Maybe a spattering of a reasoned argument? I know it'd be breaking the mold for a feminist video, but you might at least try. I mean, because let's be real. Otherwise, people are just likely to come to the conclusion that you're some crazy, wacko, spiteful drunk who goes out and threatens the cornfields in Ohio with a sword or something. Just saying. But Captain Stabby, let me make this clear, crystal clear. You cannot hurt me. There is nothing, absolutely nothing you can do to hurt me. You cannot get me fired from the institute where I'm currently working. Because first of all, they know all about my YouTube activity and we discuss it regularly. Secondly, my income now comes primarily from my work on YouTube, to the point where in essence I now only work at the university as an active charity because I still have a good research mind on me. Plus, it keeps me sharp. In some ways, it's got a sort of full circle thing going to it, in that when I first started making videos on YouTube, I essentially did this on the back of a research salary. And now 5 or so years later, that position has reversed, in part because there will always be some small-time petty loser like yourself who will be more than happy to target someone's job simply because you don't like their opinion. And yeah, there are feminists like Rebecca Watson who have stated that they think doxing is okay. In her case, merely because someone made a joke at someone else's expense. That was it. That was enough for her to be happy to dox them. Now, what does that remind me of? Oh yeah, the Muslim who thought he would tell all of the local Muslim groups where I worked.
I also wonder what the Muslim Student Association on that campus would believe about a faculty member endorsing these sort of bigoted opinions, which is why I sent every single one of them your videos, your statements, with your name attached.
Because nothing says I could easily and convincingly show that your position is utter bollocks on a free and open marketplace of ideas. They're not doing any of that, but instead trying to fuck up someone's personal life. For me, you mostly target the ideas and not the person, because most of the time the person's not actually that relevant, and I can hardly ever think of a time when their job's relevant. There are only a small number of times when the person becomes relevant. For instance, in things like where it's clear that they will straight make up bullshit in order to push ideological points. And the person's identity only becomes relevant in a very minor number of cases. Like, say, for instance, if they're setting up a porn account impersonating someone and putting Photoshop images of that person onto that site.
I understand that Thunderfoot has little problem with me photoshopping him into images, all by my vigorous, persistent, and harsh criticism of him. But to set up accounts that were virtually indistinguishable from their own and tweet grotesquely racist and sexual comments to his friends and colleagues, and to post a photoshopped image of him masturbating that potentially fool many, crossed a line. I now realize that this was wrong and clearly crossed a line.
And I stress, it's the impersonation thing that's the most important aspect here. The uber irony, of course, is that Anita Sarkeesian would be happy to merely call the photoshopping into porn weaponized porn, and it's a form of harassment, right?
I've been attacked with a constant torrent of grotesque misogynist harassment, everything from gendered hate speech.
I don't give a fuck who you are, Phil. I will knock your dick in the dirt if I have to.
To weaponized pornography, where they superimpose my face on pornographic images and then spam me with them.
And of course it could never happen to male gamers because of their privilege.
I can publicly post my username, gamertag, or contact information online without having to fear being stalked or sexually harassed because of my gender.
I will knock your dick in the dirt if I have to.
I do not have to carefully navigate my engagement with online communities or gaming spaces in order to avoid or mitigate the possibility of being harassed because of my gender.
I will knock your dick in the dirt if I have to.
If I am trash-talked or verbally berated while playing online, it will not be because I am male, nor will my gender be invoked as an insult.
This is why, Thunderfoot, I can't wait for the white men at the top of the atheist community, the Four Horsemen, and the people like you and Pat Condell. I can't wait for you guys to hurry up and pass away so that more women and non-whites can take their proper seat at the table.
And of course, it goes without saying, you can rely on Anita Sarkeesian's fan club to roundly condemn such weaponized porn when it happens to Anita's critics. Right?
Somebody splices your picture onto pictures of porn, you become indignant. Suddenly it's a personal insult for you. What are you, fucking 5? Because if I listen to your speech and the way you act, you seem like you're 2, 3, 4, 5 years old maybe. I'm leaning more towards 2 because you throw tantrums like a 2-year-old. My 2-year-old niece is not as bad as you, so I don't understand this. I really don't.
Concerns about stuff like white knighting and so forth, just let that roll off. That's,
You're probably doing something right if you're being called a white knight.
Yeah.
Thunderfoot doesn't count because Thunderfoot's an idiot. And I will punch him dead in the face if I ever see him.
But like I was saying, it's really not the photoshopping into porn that greatly bothers me. Especially if it's making some sarcastic comment like a feminist who rips into computer games having sex with computer sprites. Impersonating someone and posting incredibly photoshopped pictures to that account, that's crossing the line. But like I was saying, photoshopped porn doesn't greatly bother me, because people's right to state what they think about me must be defended, even if they think the best way to express that is photoshopping me into porn. However, the right to an opinion about someone does not extend to make all-encompassing, crazy bloodo-type threats. That shit's out of bounds.
And like I said, one of these days, I am going to find a way to fuck you over for what you did, one way or the other. If it's the last fucking thing I do, okay? And that might violate some of my ethics, but at that point, I'm really not going to care.
Indeed, let me tell you, I've offered to on-paper quit from the academy simply to spare them the harassment of nutters like yourself. And you might think that's some random hypothetical, some weird attention seek, because it would never happen in reality. Except only this week, another munchkin wrote to the academy where I'm currently working, and the local police, and all of the local newspapers, saying that, you guessed it, that this video shows that I'm a Holocaust denialist and should be arrested and put in jail. Now, does he ever show any of these claims? Of course not, because they were never said. It's kind of like swatting, the process where an honest and civically responsible citizen reports someone who likes playing Call of Duty saying, yeah, this guy says he likes guns and killing people online, and I've heard gunshots coming from his house.
And the price is hateful emails. The price is hateful tweets. The price is having people harass you in public and online. It's to have people try to fuck with you, to dox you, to share those docs, to try to hack into your accounts, to fucking deliver pizzas to your house, to fucking swat your home, to put nasty, disgusting things in your P.O. box, to harass you, to destroy you, to wreck you, to tear you apart. Simply because they know who you are, for the lulz, for the laughs, for the fun.
Sure, it's not nice to have gone from a research career, a real publishing peer-reviewed science career, to one where people will try and fuck with your personal life every chance they get. Even if that entails screwing up research on some of the fundamental aspects of life, because they don't like feminism, so they shouldn't be able to do research on some of the fundamental aspects of life. And on that scientific research stuff, it is in many ways an iconic point of just how detached the likes of Captain Stabby is from reality. Because you see, in science, a publication record speaks for itself. Indeed, many would regard publishing anything in the peer-reviewed literature as the sign of a successful scientist. And mine, it's got to be said, is a pretty solid publication record in any arena. But Captain Stabby's a feminist.
Hello, Phil. You'll forgive me if I don't stand on ceremony and address you by the term doctor, because in my eyes, not only have you not earned that title, you have not earned the title of human being.
Never let the fact that someone is obviously a bloody good scientist stop you from calling them an academic failure, an idiot, a Nazi, a racist, a rape apologist, or whatever. But his friend's a chemist and says I don't understand chemistry.
You don't even really understand chemistry all that well. That's come from people who are in chemistry. I've had people in your own field say, yeah, Thunderfoot's a pretty shitty chemist too, actually. He gets things wrong in his video.
So let me get this straight. You expect us to believe that you were given this golden opportunity to show that I was wrong on scientific grounds. It's just you, the man who wants to fuck me over if it's the last thing he does, decided not to go with that, and for some completely unexplained reason decided to leave it with, yeah, but my friend who's a scientist says Thunderfoot's a shitty scientist for some completely unexplained reason. That's it. That's your entire argument. Yeah, Hannibal, arguments of that caliber don't say, wow, this guy is really clever. He must be right. They say this man would be outclassed by someone who can't walk and chew gum at the same time. Or maybe this man has an IQ that reads, turn towards the light and water daily. So why am I taking this guy with his all-encompassing threats to fuck me over if it's the last thing he does so lightheartedly? When on the surface, the guy appears to be a full Macintosh for hate's sake I spit my last breath at thee psycho. You know, the archetypal hater.
That's exactly what you are, Phil Mason. You are a worthless, spineless coward who I wish would just fucking go away. Got it?
Well, he's got some other videos on his channel where he says he's studying archaeology. Indeed, he's got some great footage of him digging some holes at Fort Ancient in Ohio in the summer of 2011.
And as you can see, there's the unit B, 507 north, 770 east. We are now at 25 centimeters below the surface, June 30th, 2011.
And he put some detail into showing all of this in his videos. Yeah, Mr. I'm going to ruin your career is actually a wannabe archaeologist. And yeah, first and foremost, all of this information was made public by Hannibal, published by him on his main channel, and this was not being done as some cheap-ass harassment effort by me, or because of some difference of opinion, or that because he thinks that I'm a dick, or he's said nasty things about me, or even what he thinks about me. This was done with the express purpose of ascertaining just how nuts the guy was making these blanket psycho threats, and if necessary, how to report him to law enforcement.
I am hostile, and I am spoiling for a fucking fight. Okay, Phil?
Damn straight, I want to know the details of the guy making the psycho threats. Because people dumb enough to threaten you like this in public might also be dumb enough to do other shit too. And armed with all the information I would need to report him to the police, I decided to take the next step to see just how crazy the guy was, or would I just be wasting the police's time? So I decided to poke him once or twice in YouTube comments, and he went ballistic, saying that he was going to show my employers that I was a racist, a misogynist, a bad scientist, and so forth. I then asked him if he thought this being held accountable was something that should only happen to other people, or if he thought this being held accountable was something that should include people making, psycho threats. Merely the suggestion was enough to turn Hannibal the Stabby from crazy, hate-spewing monster to civilized domesticated puppy. Hannibal the Balloon Man, strong and firm when pumped up, limp and weak when the hot air leaks out of him. And then, with a little more investigation, I found this.
I'm kind of biting my tongue on that one right now, because if I start talking about it, I'm gonna get a little fucking pissed off, which I'm already sort of pissed off, so it wouldn't be good if I continue to have the rage build, because suddenly there's going to be a report coming from somewhere in the frozen tundra of Ohio of a man drunk off of his ass and daring cornstalks to fight him in single combat waving a samurai sword. And the only people that are going to know what's going on are the people that know me personally, like, yep, there he is, fuck, we gotta go stop him. I'm trying not to have that happen. I don't want to go out into the night with a weapon and seek out some enemy to create havoc with, even if it is a cornstalk or a tree or some scarecrow that pissed me off.
Hannibal the Angry Drunk, the man who wanders the frozen wastes of Ohio, threatening cornstalks and scarecrows with a sword, and relying on his friends to deal with his armed drunk moron and stop him from hurting himself and everyone else. Which is why Hannibal is now getting pitied in a video or laughed at or whatever, I'm not quite sure, and not a visit from the police.
I am hostile, and I am spoiling for a fucking fight. Okay, Phil? I will fuck you over for that one of these days if it's the last thing I ever do. I just want to make that clear, Phil.
Because let's be real, when it's said in a manner like that, that's the sort of thing that should be reported to the police. And the only thing that stopped me from doing that is I didn't want to waste the police's time on some angry drunken feminist on a webcam. So, I hear some people ask, why, if the guy is such a loser, are you bothering to make a video like this at all? Are you kidding me? Imagine what would have happened if someone had made these direct, actionable threats of violence against Anita Sarkeesian. Gendered, sexist slurs.
I don't give a fuck who you are, Phil. I will knock your dick in the dirt if I have to.
Combined with threats of violence, can you just imagine for 1 second that Anita had such solid evidence as some guy threatening to fuck her up if it's the last thing they did? Can you imagine? If threats of that sort had been made against Anita, we would never hear the end of it.
That's exactly what you are, Phil Mason. You are a worthless, spineless coward who I wish would just fucking go away. Got it?
And in many ways, Hannibal, the only thing that saved you from this going further is it's clear that you're all spite and no spine. All that it took to break this uncompromising hardman facade was the mere suggestion that you should be treated like you treat others. And I want to be clear, it wasn't even the reciprocation of his actions that made him roll over in an act of craven submission. No, it wasn't doing anything. It was merely the suggestion that people should be able to treat him like he treats others. And he has the gall to presume to lecture others on ethics. Oh, and by the way, Hannibal, way to represent the Anita Sarkeesian fan club.